Whew. All right, all right, all right. Whew. Hello, hello, hello. Whew. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Alright, today we'll probably do about roughly 45 minutes. I do still have to get the journal prompts up for this week, and do not forget to join me on GCPR Radio here on TikTok or over on the Tube of You, or you can log in to GCPR Radio online and listen to us for the Villains View tonight. It's a rockin' good time if you have not joined us. I mean, you can just come to see me. Just kidding. Swing by and hang out with me and the fellas for a little bit. Alright, today we're going to pick up on page 82. Once again, you don't have to have a book to follow along. But as you can see, we are going through 107 Days by former Vice President, Madam Kamala Devi Harris. We are on August 2nd, 95 days to the election. That Friday morning, the VP Selection Committee received final vetting memos on the 3 candidates we'd narrowed down as finalists. The committee would be going through the memos to make sure there were no last-minute surprises before we called them in for face-to-face meetings over the weekend. The residence was staked out by the press, and the media chatter was all about when I'd be interviewing. It felt like we were holding a papal conclave in the residence, and the press outside were waiting for the white smoke. Getting those candidates in and out discreetly without exposing them to a barrage was going to take some cloak and dagger shenanigans. I'd need to make the decision by Monday at the latest, since we'd announced that I'd appear with my chosen running mate Tuesday night in Philadelphia. The announcement location had been picked well in advance, simply because Pennsylvania was the most critical swing state, with 19 electoral votes. Secrecy around the interviews was important. It built excitement and momentum for the campaign. I plan to announce my decision by video, text, and email to supporters just before the Philly rally. The short list had been closely held. It was so secret that even my personal schedule identified the finalists only as candidate 1, 2, and 3. But media were reporting that some on the longer list who'd been considered earlier had cleared their schedules, canceling events in case they got the call to meet with me that weekend. This confirms that a lot of times people lie and people project. Some folks knew that they weren't on that, these people knew that they weren't on the short list. And they knew that they wouldn't be called in the middle of the night to drop everything to go. Because these were people that were active politically. Seems like there was a bit of mental strong-arming going on. Allegedly. Some big egos were about to take a bruising, and these were important people with vital work to do. It was wrong to keep them in the dark. We decided to let CNN know that the 3 finalists were Mark Kelly, Josh Shapiro, and Tim Walz. Why the hell would you go to CNN? Why the hell would you go to CNN? See, this is why people still believe that CNN is some type of juggernaut for the left-leaning. It's not. It's owned by a friend, because who really is a friend of that man, of Trump. And they are constantly making excuses for things that are on the wrong side of history. Consistently. Trump, of course, immediately took the most divisive tact he could think of, musing publicly that Josh Shapiro's Jewish identity would cost me the votes of Arab Americans. It was a typical dog whistle, except that now the frequency was audible to more than his Charlottesville Tiki Torch accolades. Isn't that funny? Because I remember when Trump was making those digs and saying those things about Josh Shapiro. And there was a lot of anti-Semitism floating about. There was a lot of hate going. But I thought we were cracking down on anti-Semitism. I thought we were Israel and the Jewish community all the way. It's almost as if nobody seems to care about the genocides going on. The owner of the conglomerate of CNN is a friend of Trump. And the dumbest and worst vice president in U.S. history is VP put it in the pullout. That admitted that he's enjoying all the free vacations he and his wife are ticking off their vacation bucket list. That their goal is to vacation in all 50 states. And he started vacationing shortly after being sworn in. No, he's not, because they say he's not. Okay, Lebanese mafia. You don't know who the current VP is, but you came in here to talk shit? How embarrassing for you. Fermez les bouches, s'il vous plaît. The timing of my running mate announcement had been driven by the virtual roll call of Democratic convention delegates that had started the night before. I couldn't announce a running mate until I officially held the nomination. There was zero suspense about that, since mine was the only name on the ballot. Because of our superhuman effort on the day Joe dropped out, we'd made it clear that I had the support needed, and no other candidate competed to get the 300 signatures required by party rules to challenge me. Plus, that would have caused the need and the requirement for a primary, which would have shortened the days of campaigning tremendously. And even that wouldn't have been enough, and there would have been multiple people popping up saying that this person wasn't qualified enough. They didn't have enough time to really understand what this person had done. It would have just been yet another shit show. But people still complained after asking for Joe to step down. I don't know what they thought was going to happen or who was going to take his place. But when you're demanding that somebody go, it is what it is. Why would she be campaigning instead of doing her job as vice president? And why would she, before Joseph Robinette Biden made it public that he wasn't going to run again, why would she run against the person that she's in the administration with? How would that go? How would they campaign against each other for the party's nomination? They've been on the same ticket. They were a part of the same administration. Their goals were aligned together. How would that work? You don't know how anything works, but you're going to come in here and say that somebody else was the dumbest in history? I'm going to need you to step away from the talking points and work on your discernment and critical thinking. I need comprehension skills. I'm not the one sitting here saying that a vice president, instead of doing their duties as vice president, should have been campaigning. I'm not the one that asked who I was talking about when I referred to the sitting vice president. She did. But people like you don't understand the sphere and the scope of the position of vice president, nor do you know what she accomplished in that time. Paul Whelan is home because of what she did. Yes, she did. What makes you think that she didn't? You came in here not to learn, not to find out if she did anything, not to join in any type of discourse that would lead to edification. So, share with the class what you know. Share with the class what you know. You came in here making the assertion. So share with the class what you know. We already went through a set of her accomplishments already. You're coming into the class late, but share what you know. Share what you know. You said that she was the worst ever. Share what you know. If she didn't accomplish anything, share what you know and why you came to that conclusion. Because once again, we've already covered this. We're past you. You should have gone to YouTube and watched the first 4 videos and then came to talk shit, but you didn't. So, what is it? Why do you feel that she was the worst? She accomplished anything? That's not a complete sentence, nor is it a question. So, what is it that you know that caused you, Lebanese Mafia 76, to say that Kamala Harris was the worst VP in the history of the United States? You wanted the attention, so what is it that you know? No. Why do you believe she is the worst VP in history? For the 4th time, we've already covered what she accomplished, and I gave you something that she accomplished. You came in here and made the assertion. So why do you think she is the worst VP in history? You're making assertions, and then you think, why do you believe she didn't accomplish anything? I have a dog downstairs that can comprehend better than you and follow directions better than you. Why, Lebanese Mafia 76, do you believe that she did not accomplish anything? Don't boot him yet, babe. Don't boot him. When Democrats are coming out saying the same thing I'm saying, that's your proof that she didn't accomplish anything. Okay. Let's go through some things here. Because I have genuine questions, okay? What is the scope of the position of Vice President of the United States? I can handle the truth. I'm having a conversation with you. What is the scope of the position of Vice President of the United States? What is the scope of the position of Vice President of the United States? Do I have to repeat things 6 times before it sinks into your head? What is the scope of the position of what is the scope of the Vice Presidency of the United States? What is the scope of the Vice Presidency of the United States? I'm going to slow walk you through explaining your assertion. So what is the scope of the Vice Presidency of the United States? Real Z Girl, I'll ask you, what is the scope of the Vice Presidency of the United States? I asked you why you felt that she didn't accomplish anything, and you said she was the worst VP. You said Democrats were saying the same thing. I said, do you know the scope? You have yet to answer. Does the scope change per president? Still didn't answer. Who negotiated the deal for Paul Whelan to be returned home and no longer be held in a prison in Russia. The Germans? No. The Germans were a part of the multicultural deal. Who set up the deal? The Germans were a part of the multi-country deal and the multi-prisoner exchange. Who set it up? Not being thanked doesn't mean you didn't accomplish it. Not being thanked doesn't mean you didn't do it. That's not answering the question. You are trying so hard to avoid being wrong. Keep saying Germans. The Germans were a part of the deal. Who orchestrated the deal? The Germans weren't the only country involved. Who orchestrated the deal? Like, for you all to be so boisterous and take time out of your day for free to troll people, you should get your information right. No, that is not the full scope of the vice presidency of the United States. And the scope of the vice presidency of the United States changes according to the POTUS at the time. The position began to widen after the whole Nixon debacle. And as much as we love George Bush jokes, George Bush expanded it the most. Especially when it came to Dick Cheney. So yeah. So Lebanese Mafia, you don't know. You're going off of talking points, and you came in here to be disruptive because you thought that you could have a gotcha moment, but you don't understand basic civics, nor do you understand geopolitics, nor do you understand any recent events. And instead of you taking a moment to edify yourself, and like I said previously, sitting back and listening to see if this is something you're interested in and just scrolling on or seeing if you can learn something, you decided to come in here and submit all over the forever World Wide Web that you have nothing firing betwixt your ears. The prisoners were released before Trump took office. The only thing that the Trump administration had a hand in was the one temporary ceasefire, and that was a good transition of power where the outgoing administration and the incoming administration worked together to negotiate a temporary ceasefire. That, yes, absolutely. You can thank the Biden and Trump administrations on that. But when it came to the prisoner exchange, they were already home well before Trump was sworn in. Lebanese Mafia, you're laughing because you don't understand. On your digital footprint, you're showing that you're stupid and proud of it. That's not a flex. That's concerning. The balloting was open till Monday evening, but word came through about 1 p.m. Friday from the party chair reporting that I'd crossed the threshold in the vote tally, making me the nominee. I was pressing on with the business at hand when Sheila grabbed me by the arm and said, "Please, just take 30 seconds. You need to appreciate the historic thing you've just accomplished." Trump had been saying he'd decide about debating me once I'd clinched the nomination. Sure enough, he released a statement on his Truth Social platform. Y'all know where truth goes today. It was classic Trump. Yes, he would debate me, but he'd reneged on the agreement negotiated for the debate. According to him, it would now be on September 4th, not 10th. It would be on Fox News, not ABC, and the rules will be similar to the rules of my debate with Sleepy Joe, who has been treated horribly by his party, but with a full arena audience. Isn't it funny that, once again, the same people who called and demanded for Joseph Robinette Biden to step down all of a sudden flipped the switch and was like, was this the right thing to do? They attacked him. They were so mean to him. Why did they force him out? That's like your landlord evicting you and then complaining about the fact that you got evicted. MSNBC didn't have a breakdown. Months after being released, Paul Whelan, thinking that he was going to get a book deal out of it, stood there holding a Bud Light, which I thought conservatives were supposed to be boycotting, and tried to thank Trump. The timeline didn't line up, and it was pointed out. Nobody had a breakdown about it. You might want to take he thanked y'all really do believe in the trust me bro thing. There's also a woman during Trump's fraud trial last year proclaimed that she was deeply in love with Trump and said that Trump had written her an extensive love letter claiming that he was in love with her and that he was going to steal from the company for her. And you know, that was determined to be a lie. I hate to have to defend Trump on that, but it was a lie. Just because somebody throws Trump's name in it and says it, don't mean it's true. These are adults. These are adults. These are adults. I'm sure his team leaned on him to keep the rule that mics would be silenced during the other debaters' time. That was the one rule I wanted changed. I knew I could handle his disruptive asides, and I wanted viewers to see and hear how undisciplined and bullying he could be. His team knew that his crazy rantings didn't play well, so they'd keep the requirement in place. The wording of his statement made it sound as if I'd agreed to all the other changes. Nope. We could sense an air of panic in the Trump campaign. That day, we'd announced that we'd taken in $310 million in the last month alone, more than double his donations over the same period. So we decided to punch back hard. I responded that I would be in the ABC studio on September 10th, whether he was there or not, and would be glad to use the 90 minutes of airtime exclusively. August 3rd, 94 days to the election. When we moved into the vice president's residence, I'd worked with a craftsman to design a table for the dining room. It comprised 3 squares that could fit together as one long table for big dinners or staff meetings, or it could also be separated for smaller, more intimate occasions, with drop leaves that could be raised to make them round. On Saturday morning, we arranged the room for the next day's interviews. There was just a single square table in the center of the room. I would sit on one side. My potential VP would sit on the other. Either Sheila Nix or Jod, J-O-D, would be on the sofa across the room, out of the candidate's line of sight. They would alternate as my second pair of eyes and ears. I didn't want to overstaff what was already a stressful situation. Very few people have ever made this decision. I called Hillary and Bill Clinton because they knew what it was like and would give me candid and confidential advice. One of your strengths, they said, is that you bring a joyful energy to the campaign. You have to choose someone who won't work against that. They told me to be aware that over the course of the campaign, people will be able to tell if it is a genuinely good relationship or political marriage of convenience. Bill, you have to level with them and watch how they answer. Bill said that Al Gore was good for him because he knew things I didn't know. We were as different as daylight and dark, and it worked. They both emphasized that I'd be offering this person the chance of a lifetime, so they'd better know it. If they were someone dying for immediate public recognition, it might not be the job for them. They might have to swallow a lot of crap. Now Al Gore and Bill Clinton, that was the odd couple. It was. Who should not have been a part of that equation, and y'all can come for me if you want to, is Tipper Gore. Dead heifer. Lord have mercy. If you ever want to know what a conservative Democrat looks like, Tipper Gore. Tipper Gore. Crazy. Crazy on the spectrum of conservatism. But a Democrat. Like, Lord, woman. Like, she was the one that, they're hurting our children and putting demonic things in their head by playing records backwards. Who the fuck is playing a record backwards? Like, ma'am, Miss Mamas. And Al Gore, I will never forgive you for giving up on the whole Chad situation in Florida. You should have waited for the count to be done. Because when the count was done after you conceded, you won. You won. You could have said, you're on my beef list. You're on my forever beef list. You and your should have been tipped over wife. She had more compassion than Trump. I wouldn't say intelligence and everything else. She had some crazy ideas. Just glad she never decided to run for president. Because I can only imagine the people that would have voted for her. I can only imagine. We're not going to praise her just because of the political side that she put on her ballot and her voter registration. Absolutely not. Around here, we criticize everybody. Okay? Nobody is above reproach. Okay? Because all of them essentially work for us. My staff and I spent much of the day going over the briefing books on each finalist, working out what we needed to glean from this final interview. We had the data. The main question remaining was, are they going to be compatible? I'd recruited my invaluable Social Security and residence manager, Storm Horncastle, to collect each finalist in her 99 Jeep Wrangler. The press was used to seeing her coming and going from the residence, so if her passenger ducked, no one would know he was here. We dubbed it Operation Veep in a Jeep. She may not have kids, but she definitely has mom jokes. Excuse me. She definitely... Kamala girl. You know what? You spend a lot of time working. So I'm going to let you slide with that one, girl. I'm going to let you slide with that one. I had an ulterior motive for recruiting Storm for this job. Storm is from Norway, not especially political, and had mostly worked in embassies prior to taking the job with me at the vice president's residence. She has an exquisitely tuned sense of protocol, is an excellent judge of character, and does not hold back her opinions. I thought it would be telling to see how each finalist treated her. Over the years, I'd learned it's one thing how people treat me. It's another to see how they behave towards someone they perceive as less powerful. I'm especially sensitive to this because, as a child, I saw how my mother, a small brown woman with a foreign accent, would be treated in a fancy department store and other public spaces, as if she didn't belong or couldn't afford to be there. She was a distinguished scientist doing groundbreaking research, but often I saw her encounter derision and disrespect. I needed to know that my running mate was a person who valued the dignity of everyone and would take a moment to show it. We don't know if she will or not because she's not currently running for anything. She's not even currently discussing being back in politics. So what was your point of coming in here, Walking Dead 818? No one's talking about her currently running for president. We're reading a book. Anywho, a lot of times people do a good job of hiding who they really are, or only believing that respect should be given to those that they perceive as being more powerful than them, more wealthy than them, more connected to them. And then that respect dwindles as they start to climb these ladders themselves. I call it the step parent effect. No, that does not mean that every step parent acts like this. Absolutely not. But more common than not, and the trope of many movies, especially Disney movies, is that you have a step parent that will pretend to like a child, love a child, but then when they get that child away from the bio parent, they're harmful, they're disastrous, they're disrespectful. And women receive this a lot. And people who have been marginalized receive it even more. How do you know? How do you know? And even if she hired a slew of ghostwriters to put together a 300-page book, Trump didn't write a single book himself, but slapped his name on every single one of them. So your point is what? Marvel Comics still exist. Guess what? The newest one, Stan Lee didn't write. August 4th, 93 days to the election. They are very special. They come in like doing the most. Here's the thing. You clicked into my live, which boosts my algorithm. You're commenting, which boosts my algorithm. Every third troll that comes in here is also gifting me, which benefits me and boosts my algorithm. You all are not good at this. Like, you should just ignore me, not amplify my voice. But these are the same people who protest by buying a product to set it on fire. The pack of reporters stalking out the gate to the Naval Observatory that Sunday had no idea that Storm had secretly arranged to come and go through an alternate entrance that hadn't been used for about 20 years. Inside, I would be making one of the most difficult decisions of my life, against a background of international tension. On July 31st, Israel had pulled off the audacious assassination of Hamas's political leader right in the heart of Tehran, at the guest house of the Revolutionary Guard, no less. We expected Iran to respond. The question was how, when, and with what consequences. There's campaigning and there is governing. That weekend, I would have to divide my focus between my role as a candidate for president and my most solemn duty as sitting vice president to help protect our nation's security. We had decided to hold a pre-brief before each interview and a debrief after. I knew all three men. We'd worked together. But this encounter was going to be very different. Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, arrived first. Storm had picked him up from the parking lot of an elementary school in Glover Park. At the last minute, Storm had traded her Jeep for a vehicle with tinted windows, since discretion in the process was so important to us. Josh went to get in the front seat, but Storm instructed that he needed to be in the back so he could duck and not be seen. She thought he seemed a little disappointed by that. He did. He knew better. He is a governor. Okay, this is not a first-time alderman in Podunk, Kentucky. Okay? This is a sitting governor. He knows the protocol and he knows the need for discretion. But like I said earlier, some people, they try to intimidate and push themselves by force into these positions. Like, oh, I'm going to give you no choice. Like, I'm going to make sure I'm the only one seen. How's that supposed to help the campaign overall? We need to get to a point of getting back to politics being about the populace. instead of making one person popular. When he learned she was the residence manager, he peppered her with questions about the house, from the number of bedrooms to how he might arrange to get Pennsylvania artists' work on loan from the Smithsonian. Not putting together a plan. For the campaign, or how to govern, or how to deal with the conflict in Palestine right now. No, already envisioning yourself, not in the position, but in the residence, in the place of prestige. And how to ingratiate yourself even more in the hearts of Pennsylvanians and those around, because we love a good patriotism, a good loyalty to the home team story. Let me outfit it with artwork from the Smithsonian of Pennsylvania artists. Yeah, because that stops a genocide. And that'll win my vote. But once again, Zionists, tell me how you're under attack here in the United States. In our meeting, he was, as always, poised, polished, and personable, aka a career politician. I told him how much I admired his work. Girl, are you fangirling here? Let's keep going. He was great on the stump, a wonderful campaigner, very compelling and very bright. Our careers synced in many places. While employed as a political advisor on Capitol Hill, he took night classes to get his law degree at Georgetown and then ran for the Pennsylvania State House. He had been twice elected state attorney general. I'd had a chance to see how his mind worked when we were both Rodel Fellows at the Aspen Institute in 2006, when he was a member of the Pennsylvania State House and I was San Francisco DA. That 2-year bipartisan program for young elected leaders included seminars on the founding documents of democracy and ethics, as well as international trips exploring global issues. Josh had been elected governor in 2022 and was popular in a state with 19 electoral votes that we badly needed to win. Sounds like some bruised egos went into this election on all sides. We talked about how to handle the attacks he'd confronted on Gaza and what effect it might have on the enthusiasm we were trying to build. Big protests at the convention were a major concern. As a student, he'd written an op-ed stating that peace with Palestinians was impossible. And his decades-old article had been dragged out to smear him as Genocide Josh. He said he felt he'd been able to deal with critics by stating clearly that his youthful opinion had been misguided and that he was fully committed to a two-state solution. He had also publicly called Netanyahu one of the worst leaders of all time. Josh, you're still a Zionist. You're still a Zionist. Difference between you and Joseph Robinette Biden is age. I asked him if he understood the job of vice president, because if you do, you'll be good at it and our administration will be strong. He peppered me with questions, trying to nail down in detail what role I saw for my VP. At one point, he mused that he would want to be in the room for every decision. Bitch, you would be the VP, not the P. I told him bluntly that was an unrealistic expectation. A vice president is not a co-president. And I think that's what some of these men thought they were getting with a woman as president. That misogyny is deep. I had a nagging concern that he would be unable to settle for a role as number two and that it would wear on our partnership. I had to be able to completely trust the person in that role. No, he was not going to be okay with being a number two, and I think it had more to do with being a number two to a woman. And I think that's why he didn't get a call from anybody else. They know that he has a problem with being anybody's number two. But he really was like, you know what, I'll polish myself up and take the meetings with the woman, because he really thought that his competency would outshine her. And like in the corporate world, he would just be bumped up over her. Every day as president, I said, I'll have 99 problems and my VP can't be one. Okay. Okay, KZ. Apart from apprehensions for myself, I was also concerned for him. I thought his frustrations with the job might impact his performance in the role. They definitely would. And why take an effective Democratic governor out of a job he liked and was good at? Is he good at it? But could I afford to turn my back on such a talented political athlete in such a critical state? Yes. We don't need another Zionist up in the Oval. We don't. Josh assured me he'd do everything to help me win Pennsylvania, whether I choose him or not, because this is the most important election we face. Well, survey says that was a lie. He lied to you, girl. He straight to your face. I had time to hash out these thoughts in a debrief with my team. Meanwhile, Storm returned Josh to the pickup location. Storm instructed the state trooper who was arranging transport on an alternate route that would avoid driving by the vice president's residence on Massachusetts Avenue. She assumed that the press would notice official vehicles with Pennsylvania plates. She was disappointed 10 minutes later to see those very cars on CNN cruising right by the residence. The lack of discretion did not play well with her. What did I tell you? What did I tell you? She picked up Minnesota Governor Tim Walz from a nearby dog park. He was amused by the cloak and dagger shenanigans. On the drive, they talked about her Norwegian background. His state has a large Norwegian community, and when he arrived, he seemed touched that Storm had his preferred beverage, Diet Mountain Dew, on the table ready for him. Okay, Tim, I knew I liked you, minus the diet part. We stand Mountain Dew over here. Yes. Yes, we do. Okay? We need the sugar though. We need the sugar. We need the sugar. Real quick, fun fact. You do realize that Mountain Dew was created to mix with moonshine, right? The more you know. It's funny because most people mix liquor with everything but Mountain Dew. It was quickly clear to me that Tim had walked into that room feeling he wouldn't get the job. The first thing he said as he sat down, I don't even know if the door had closed behind him, was, "Whether or not you pick me, I'm going to do everything I can to get you elected." Survey says that was the truth. That was the truth. That man was telling you the truth to his face. He thought you was just being polite, okay, and looking for an ally. He was like, "Girl, I'm going to be your ally. You didn't even have to bring me up here, but I appreciate you bringing me up here and making me feel special, okay? I feel bonita sitting right here, and I appreciate you making me feel bonita, okay? But I heard who else was on the short list, okay? I'm just going to write this in my journal as this was a good day, like I was Ice Cube, and I'm going to enjoy this Diet Mountain Dew and the stories I'm about to tell my grandkids at Thanksgiving this year." He was immediately self-critical. "I'm not a good debater. I've never used a teleprompter." He was less polished than Josh, but he had an appealing authenticity and was generally self-deprecating. A lot of people in politics act self-deprecating, but it's just that, an act. If anything, Tim over-indexed his own liabilities. Here's the thing. Tim Walz is a humanitarian who just happens to be employed as a politician. He works to do what's best for the populace. He does not care about being popular. He is just a regular old dude that's excited to be able to help people and pay his bills. And he seems genuinely shocked that he's made friends along the way. That's the politics we need. Not people out here trying to fill up their networking card and trying to secure how history will view them in regards to a resume instead of actual work. On the face of it, we had nothing in common. I'm West Coast, he's Midwest. I was born in Oakland and grew up in a working class urban neighborhood. He's from a rural town of 400 on the Nebraska plains. I worked at McDonald's in the summer. He worked on his family's farm. Despite those differences, Tim reminded me of everything I grew up with. He was plain-spoken, hard-working, strong, kind, and a fighter for what he believes is right. And he had a sense of humor. How the fuck were they different? How the fuck were they different? Both born and raised in the United States. Both worked hard. I cannot stand when people go, oh, we're so different because of where you lived. But then you want to call for unity when you can't even see the unity between you and your neighbor, you and your coworker, you and someone that you're interviewing. Because you didn't grow up in the same state, that makes you different, does it? Because every day on and offline, I hear people talking about the same things, needing the same things, going through the same things, hurting in the same way, frustrated in the same way. But why do we look at what actually connects us as what's different about us? I would expect her to say, well, you know, he's a man. He has that experience. As a woman, I have this experience. But no, I grew up in California. He grew up in... I worked at McDonald's. He worked on the family farm. You both worked and worked hard. You both believe in honesty. You both believe in doing what's best for the populace. So... Never mind the teleprompter. Here was a guy who knew how to put an engine together. A guy who could talk knowledgeably to a farmer about hogs and soybeans. A guy who knew what it meant to hunt in fall, to put food in the freezer to last through winter. None of it was shtick. It was just who he is. Tim Walz is the common man that so many people say they want to represent them in politics, but they shun and dog and make jokes of these people. They don't want the actual common man. They want the person who's going to cosplay them. This is why people rock so hard for Taylor Swift. Because they put things on her that she never said, never did, no nothing. And they believe that, you know, she got it out the mud and she came out nowhere with nothing and she made something. She didn't. She didn't. And I'm not knocking her success at all. At all. I'm not saying she doesn't currently work hard. But so many people pretend to have meager beginnings when it's obvious that they didn't come from meager beginnings. Because you're so indoctrinated in this country to idolize the rich as long as the rich tell you that they started off poor. As long as you can believe that they achieved the American dream without anybody ever explaining to you what the American dream is. Because if I were to say, hey, define the American dream, 10 different people will say 10 different things. And if I say, who told you about the American dream? When you really sit back and think about it, you will remember when people started bringing up the American dream to you, but nobody's ever told you the origins of it or what it's supposed to be. Because I'm pretty sure you had no idea that the American dream was a concept that was brought up by somebody who was writing stories specifically for young boys in magazines, who was a former pastor, the son of a pastor, who got busted molesting boys. And the church and his father said, oh, don't arrest him. He's going to apologize and he's just going to move. And he moved to New York and was still allowed access to little boys, and he was selling the American dream to young boys who were brand new immigrants to the country. That was the American dream. You haven't even read the book. You're coming in here saying worst book ever as I'm breaking down what the American dream means and the origin of it. Maybe, I don't know, you should listen before you start commenting. Because you just came in here commenting as if you are okay with pedophilia. Did you think about that, John? Did you think of that? Because that's what we're discussing right now. The origins of the American dream and its ties to literal pedophilia. Pedophilia so badly that before we had the term PTSD, 3 young men were suffering from PTSD. One of the first major cover-ups from a church, not a Catholic church. Okay, once again, John, I'm going to slow it down for you. When you came in commenting, we were talking about the history of the American dream and where it came from. No mushrooms here, Booski. Maybe you should have listened before you started commenting. I have no clue about the conversation that I began and I'm at the head of. John, something tells me that you fight accountability daily and comprehension trips you up. Do you have a lot of bumps on your head? Do ya? Alrighty, we are going to stop here on page 90. Oh yeah, I don't pay them any attention. I just love the fact that they come on and boost the content. We're going to pause here. We will pick back up same time tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be starting at 6:30 because from 5:30 to 6:30, I do have the open discussion on race. Link is in the bio if you want to check me out. But I do have to skedaddle over to GCPR. You can find the link in my bio for tonight's episode of The Villain's View. It's a rocking good time. We will have Georgia congressional candidate Bree Wilson on. She is the young lady. There's also a co-host of mine on Conversations with Taz, also on YouTube. But she's a young lady that's running against the woman, Tori, who came on and said that she reported the Hyundai factory in Georgia. So come on over, get some information, support the cause. Bring some friends. As always, each one teach one, each one reach one. And if you missed any of the previous parts of us going over 107 Days by Kamala Harris, you can view them right now on YouTube. And by the end of the night, this one will be up on YouTube as well. So you can, keep up and go along with us. Now, go out, get into some good trouble. But remember, nothing that requires bail and this economy. Love ya. Be good.